Most people destroy their own power with a single sentence, and they don't even realize it. It usually sounds innocent, even reasonable. Let me explain. But according to the cold logic of power described by Niccolò Machiavelli, the moment you begin explaining yourself, you may have already lost, because in the silent battlefield of human psychology, explanations rarely signal intelligence. They signal weakness, and the people who understand this rule quietly dominate rooms without ever raising their voice. Tonight, we uncover one of the most uncomfortable truths about power. The more you explain yourself, the less people respect you. Not because your explanation is wrong, but because of what it unconsciously communicates. Imagine a meeting room. Two people disagree. One person states their decision calmly. The other immediately begins defending themselves. They talk faster. They add more details. They try to make everything perfectly clear. And something strange happens. The more they explain, the less authority they seem to have. You can feel it. The room shifts. Eyes start wandering. Confidence evaporates. But the person who simply states their position and remains silent, they suddenly appear stronger, not because they said more, but because they said less. This isn't accidental. Human beings are constantly scanning for invisible signals of status, and explanations trigger a dangerous psychological message. I need your approval. When someone explains too much, the listener subconsciously assumes one thing. You are trying to justify yourself, and people only justify themselves when they feel they are on trial. Powerful individuals rarely behave like defendants. They behave like judges. History quietly supports this pattern. When powerful leaders make decisions, they rarely flood the public with detailed explanations. They announce, they declare, they move on. Why? Because authority is not created through arguments. It is created through certainty. Uncertainty invites debate. Certainty ends it. And that is exactly why Machiavelli warned rulers about a dangerous habit. Once a leader begins explaining every decision, they slowly train others to question them. Every explanation becomes an invitation for another challenge, another doubt, another negotiation. Eventually, the authority disappears completely. But the real danger of explaining yourself isn't just political. It happens every day in ordinary life, at work, in relationships, even in casual conversations. Someone questions you, and suddenly you feel the urge to defend yourself. You add context. You clarify your intentions. You try to prevent misunderstanding. But psychologically, something else happens beneath the surface. Every extra sentence lowers your perceived status, because the calmest person in the room is almost always seen as the most powerful. Silence feels like control. Over-explaining feels like panic. And human beings instinctively trust the person who appears least disturbed by the situation. There's an even darker twist. Some people intentionally provoke explanations. They question your decisions. They challenge your statements. They ask, why? Again and again. Not because they want answers, but because they want to pull you into a defensive position. The moment you start explaining, they gain the upper hand. Without realizing it, You've accepted their frame. You're no longer the authority. You're the one seeking permission. And the most dangerous manipulators understand this perfectly. They know that if they can make you explain yourself long enough, they can slowly strip away your power. But here's the uncomfortable truth: most people never notice. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. And the moment you learn when to stay silent, you begin to see human interactions very differently. Because the real secret Machiavelli hinted at wasn't just about silence. It was about control. Control over your words, control over your reactions, control over when you choose to justify yourself, and when you simply walk away. And once you understand the deeper rule behind this, you'll realize that explaining yourself isn't always a mistake, but in the wrong moment, it can be the fastest way to lose respect. There is a moment in every confrontation where the balance of power quietly shifts. It doesn't happen when someone raises their voice. It doesn't happen when someone wins the argument. It happens when one person begins defending themselves, and the other person simply watches. The defender believes they are clarifying the situation, but to the observer, something else is happening. They are revealing insecurity. And insecurity is like blood in the water. The social mind detects it instantly. This is why some people can walk into a room, say almost nothing, and still command attention, while others speak endlessly, yet seem invisible. The difference isn't intelligence, it's restraint. Think about the most confident people you've ever met. When someone questions them, they rarely rush to defend every detail. They pause, they hold eye contact. Sometimes they simply repeat their position once. Then they stop talking. That silence creates tension, and tension forces the other person to fill the space. Suddenly, the challenger becomes the one explaining, the one justifying, the one losing ground. This subtle reversal is one of the oldest power dynamics described by Niccolò Machiavelli. Because power is not just about what you say. It's about who is forced to prove themselves. The moment you are the one proving, you have already stepped down from authority. But this doesn't mean silence all the time. In fact, blind silence can also destroy credibility. The real skill is something much rarer: strategic silence. Powerful individuals choose carefully when explanations are necessary and when they are traps. For example, if someone asks a sincere question, clarity builds trust. But if someone challenges you publicly just to undermine you, explaining yourself only strengthens their attack, because the audience stops focusing on the original issue. They begin focusing on your defense, and psychologically, the person defending always appears weaker than the person questioning. Courtrooms are designed around this exact principle. The prosecutor questions, the defendant explains. Everyone instinctively understands who holds the stronger position. Now imagine applying this awareness to everyday life. A coworker questions your decision in a meeting. Instead of launching into a 5-minute explanation, you calmly say, "That's the decision," and you move on. No emotional reaction, no defensive tone, just certainty. Suddenly the room becomes quiet, because confidence without justification creates a strange psychological effect. People begin assuming you must have reasons, even if they haven't heard them yet. Authority fills the gaps, but when you over-explain, you do the opposite. You unintentionally invite others to search for flaws in your logic. And human beings are very good at finding flaws. This is why some leaders slowly lose control over time. At first, they speak with confidence, but as criticism grows, they begin explaining more and more. Every decision comes with a paragraph, then a speech, then an apology. Eventually, people stop seeing them as decisive. They see them as negotiable. And once authority becomes negotiable, respect disappears. But here is the most uncomfortable truth of all. Many people explain themselves because they want to be liked. They believe transparency will earn approval. And sometimes it does. But respect and approval are not the same currency. Approval is given to those who make others comfortable. Respect is given to those who appear unshakable. And human beings, deep down, follow the person who seems least affected by pressure. So the real lesson hidden inside Machiavelli's warning is not arrogance, it's discipline. Discipline over the instinct to defend yourself. Discipline over the need to justify every action. Discipline to recognize when silence protects your authority. Because once you start noticing this pattern, you will see it everywhere. In politics, in business, in relationships, the person who speaks the least often controls the most. And the next time someone pressures you with questions, accusations, or demands for explanations, pause. Remember the rule. Sometimes the most powerful sentence you can say is nothing at all.